Hey, everybody, welcome back to Good Marketing with Stephanie, the show for marketers who know that playing it safe is usually the fastest way to get ignored. Today's episode is especially for anyone marketing in a traditional, technical, or we've always done it this way type of industry. My guest today is going to be Josh Rosman. He's the marketing manager at Oberlin Filter Company. And Oberlin is a 60-year-old third-generation manufacturer of automatic pressure filtration systems based in Wisconsin. So very cold right now, I assume. Josh is a one-person marketing team doing what most people say can't be done in B2B manufacturing, which is making complex industrial equipment memorable, human, and impossible to ignore. So if you're hearing that sentence and you're like, what, how? Josh is going to explain that to you today. And Josh did it in a really interesting way himself. He created a spokes character named Phil, and he was able to actually get his leadership to say yes, and he's seen excellent results from that, which we'll talk about a little bit more during the show today. So in this conversation, we're going to discuss why being forgettable is actually the biggest risk in B2B marketing. So it's kind of flipped usually where, the leadership will think that trying to stand out is a greater risk, right? But that's actually not true. Being forgettable is a greater risk, and we'll talk about why. You need to remember that your buyers are still humans, no matter how technical your product is. And Josh will share how you can inject personality and a story into complex products without sacrificing your credibility. And that's an important one. Josh will also share with us how bold ideas can absolutely thrive in traditional industries if you know how to frame the problem, build buy-in, and focus on making your tech more approachable instead of just louder. So if you've ever felt stuck between, well, this is how it's always been done, and there has to be a better way, this episode is for you. So let's dive right in. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. Great intro. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for being on the show today. Super excited to talk about this topic with you. But before we get into, the meat of our interview today, I would love to just start with your career journey so far. So tell us your marketing origin story. Where did you start and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So like you mentioned, I'm a one-person marketing team here at Oberlin Filter Company. So been in business for 61 years now, a third-generation manufacturer. We make automatic pressure filtration systems in the Midwest in Wisconsin. We ship them all across the world and many different types of applications that customers can use these filters for. And my job, I think the best way to put it, is to take these complex industrial filtration processes and technology, and we sell the equipment to. And basically, let me just kind of step in a little bit. What does our filter do? You hear filtration, and usually the first thing people go is air filters. You sell air filters. No. So there's different types, right? And what we do is we specialize in solid liquid separation, which removes contaminants from all types of fluids, like metalworking fluids, frying oils, wastewater fluids, a whole bunch of different types. So my job is to take that process and this equipment that we have and make what we do more memorable, approachable, and like you mentioned, just impossible to ignore. Because if you're anything like probably most other people, filtration's probably not something that you think of on a daily basis. It's usually kind of hidden or in the background of a lot of really neat processes in the manufacturing space that you might not be aware has a filtration process. So to answer your question, before joining Oberlin back in 2023, now I spent many years in sales, marketing, and this was across many different industries, retail, insurance, financial services. And I think when someone first hears that, they may think, well, wow, okay, you were on a completely different side of different industries. What made you land in manufacturing? And how can you apply what your experience is in manufacturing? And I actually kind of see that as a blessing. So it's really been that cross industry experience that has truly allowed me to translate pretty complex products. Before it was financial products and services, and turn them into very, very clear value propositions that I can translate and build systems around to help small teams, small companies basically punch above their weight. So now I'm applying those same things that I've learned in the past in those other industries in manufacturing. and proving that basically B2B marketing doesn't really have to be boring like a lot of people call it. I don't even know why people are saying it's boring. I don't remember being part of a conversation like that. I think it's not boring. It's super neat, but basically trying to bring B2B marketing and make it more effective and not boring. So that's kind of my journey and how I wound up to where I am today, and happy to be doing it. I always like a good challenge, and I think when I first joined, there were plenty of challenges I took on, and now we're making some cool things happen. So happy to be doing it.
That is so awesome. I love to hear it. And, I am totally an evangelist of the idea that B2B marketing does not have to be boring. And, we are not talking necessarily B2B like some of the flashier, maybe like SaaS platforms out there or something like that, but things that are traditionally thought of as being like boring products. Like I remember just fun anecdote from my own career. My first internship I had out of college, shout out to Clunk and Milan Advertising in Allentown, Pennsylvania. But one of my clients was an industrial storage solutions company, which I mean, if you think of like the average consumer, what could possibly be more boring to just like an average person than industrial storage? However, for me, it was really fun to your point, get to solve that challenge of how do I communicate about this in a way that is approachable, that is interesting, and that matters to the people who actually use those solutions, right?
Yep.
And that leads me to my first question for you, which is kind of this split that has existed in the past, in my perspective anyway, and I'm sure you'll agree, between B2B and B2C marketing, right? It's just sort of expected that if you are marketing something to a consumer audience, that you get to have fun, that you get to be creative, you get to try these different concepts and really have fun with it, versus on the B2B side, you just have to be, as boring as mud, or so, you know what I mean? Like
You're right.
This consistent, pervasive idea. So how, first of all, do you find that to be true as well? What's your perspective on that? And why do you think it's important for B2B companies, especially those in these kinds of fields, to break out of that mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, I kind of like what I mentioned earlier. It's like, I don't know, I don't fully understand like where that concept even came from, right? And I think it's kind of interesting too, because there's been some newsletters that I've had subscribed to for a long time, and I'm just now starting to see that conversation come forward. So I was kind of thinking about that over the last week, and asking myself, why am I seeing this pop up all of a sudden? I think it's perfect timing because with the advancement of AI and all this new technology coming out, I think what's causing it is that I think brands and B2B companies globally are starting to now take a look at this. At least the ones that I believe will be successful in the next few years are starting to have that conversation today, and they're internally asking themselves, what do we need to do right now so that by the end of this year we can look back and be really proud of where we are in building our brand, getting other people to realize that we're out there. Because let's be honest, in a matter of months, 6 months to 12 months, it's going to be really challenging to get people, especially in the B2B space, get customers to remember your name, because we're hearing about it now. There's certain AI platforms, AI chat platforms that are now offering paid advertising. So now you have SEO to worry about, you have GEO to worry about, and all of this complexity and technicality that's going to be flooding the system in the next few months will eventually lead to companies unfortunately disappearing because nobody knows about them. So to your point, the realization that there's something big, something transformative that's coming in the next 6 to 12 months is kind of either making more people aware that they need to do something about this, or it might be scaring them in a way. So when I joined Oberlin Filter, I saw that there were some opportunities. So it was traditionally, as as we're mostly aware in the B2B space, there's a lot of forgettable marketing. And what I mean by that is, spec sheets, generic stock photos on a website, messaging, the same blue background, everything like that. And if you're in this space, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I believe that when I first arrived here, that we could do something truly special. We needed to do something truly special because AI was here in 2023. It's when it just started, becoming popular. And if you were an early adopter, you were already using it, and probably those dots were connecting, and you're realizing that things were moving into this direction. And that's what I was feeling at the time in 2023. And I realized I needed to do something about it, but there was a specific challenge. How could we do something fun and memorable without ruining credibility or sacrificing it, you could say? So I came up with the idea to pitch a spokes character called Phil. And basically, the whole concept was a friendly, knowledgeable character that took these complex problems and provided a solution and helped customers realize that filtration could be their solution that they could take. And initially, when we were kind of developing him, that reaction that you got was so like a cartoon. What for B2B? Like what other companies are doing this? And just remember that question because we'll touch on that later, because I think I hear that more in the industry than I think I'd like. What other companies are doing it? So just remember that. We'll touch on that. But when we created Phil, not only was it something unique that no one in this space, industrial filtration, was doing, but I could see the potential of where this was going to go, because we were eventually going to reach a point where the technology would start to get in the way of the branding and memorability of the company. So I realized not only did I need to create something special, but there was a certain way that I needed to do it. And I'll leave it at that. But that kind of is where all of this started from, in realizing that things were shifting in the industry.
Yeah, that's such a great story as well, about the development of Phil and how Phil was kind of a response to what you had seen as, and I mentioned this on my last episode I did too, but the B2B marketing being sort of like the millennial sad beige of marketing, right? It's like, come on, we need some color, we need some excitement, we need something interesting. And to your point about Phil, for the show, I had looked up some, fun like science facts, and the human brain processes images 60,000 times faster than text, right? So when you're bringing this idea of this character forward, this cartoon, who is going to be able to translate those, value propositions for your business, right, in a way that is approachable, that is fun, that is engaging, that's going to be a lot more memorable, right, to the people seeing that and seeing it repeatedly, because repetition is also super important. So,
right.
In terms of being forgettable versus standing out, how is standing out a competitive advantage? And, let's say, there's a company that is saying, okay, let's do it, we're going to start now, versus a company that's like, oh, well, nobody else is doing it, I'm not going to do that. 12 months from now, where's company A, where's company B, right? Like, what is the sort of long-term benefit or risk of not standing out?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say hats off to the company that doesn't ask the question, why is no one else doing it? Because like we know from experience, if you're asking the question, that means you're probably already behind. So we're about to enter such a competitive business environment over the next 6 to 12 months with AI. And my personal opinion on that is that you're really going to be able to see who's been using their tools correctly and who's been using them to be creative, memorable, provide true value to their customers, and also create a memorable experience that has them keep coming back. And most companies, I think what we found, especially in, like you mentioned, what some consider boring, we don't consider boring, but industries like manufacturing, they want to play it safe, with their marketing. They want to blend in. They want to use, like we were talking about earlier, the same stock imagery. They want to sound exactly like their competitors. But in a world where your buyers are still human, who scroll on the same social media feeds that we scroll on, who watch Netflix at night. Being forgettable, in my opinion, is the biggest risk of all. It's not going to work. So basically, it's something that we have to get, have you ever heard the phrase, get comfortable with being uncomfortable? I think we're entering that time period where that's more true than ever before, where we have to start showing up to work each day and asking ourselves, what can we do that I'm still not very comfortable with, but I know will put the company and our customers in a spot, a very, very beautiful spot in the next 12 months where they'll remember us. They'll remember our company first when they think of filtration solutions or whatever your business does, and they'll call us first, and they'll have a better experience with us first because we're layering in personality and a human element to this technology. And the reason why I've been kind of saying this 6 to 12 month time frame is they're implementing AI right now as we speak, and most of them are doing it wrong, in my opinion. They're focusing on rolling out a tool to help them solve a solution instead of creating an experience that gives their customers and the people that work for them something memorable and something enjoyable. Because at the end of the day, B2B customers they're not that different from B2C customers. We still like to spend time on social media and watch our shows and go home to our families and make gut decisions at times that they may not have 100% logic backed decisions, but we go with what we know, and we're still human at the end of the day. So I think that's the real risk that someone could be taking in the B2B space is just acting and doing things like everyone else. And I'm sure we'll talk more about what that means as well.
Oh yeah, I like to call it the epidemic of sameness.
Yes,
because with the what the points that you mentioned about AI, right, and everybody's sort of speed running with this new tool, but putting out things that maybe are not actually, your point, engaging for their end user, like the end person that they're trying to connect with. So it's a really interesting point that you make, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into something that you've said a few times now during this interview, which is that there seems to be this hesitancy among leadership specifically in some of these more traditional fields or sectors, especially in manufacturing, right? Manufacturing can still be very old school. And, I even had a conversation with a senior leader at a small family-owned manufacturing company a while back. And, he was the president, but his dad owned the company. And the dad was, again, more old school. He was afraid to really try to do anything different with their marketing or their communications because he thought that, his competitors would then try to copy off of him, or that they'd be revealing too much or something like that. So that's just one example, like one anecdote that I've personally encountered over the last year. And so I'm curious, to that point in that example, but just generally, what do you think is behind this unwillingness to take a leap of faith and try something different? Like, why do you think that these leaders don't want to take risks and always want to play it safe? What are they scared of?
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. I think the biggest compliment of all is to be copied. I'm not sure. Well, it all stems from fear, right? So everyone wants to be original. They want to be remembered, and they want to provide their customers a good experience. And sometimes when you have an idea, you have like a bold idea, it is a little scary to like put that out there because you don't have all the answers yet. You haven't run the real world test. We can talk about this point as well a little bit later as well. But there's probably, most marketers or just business people in general, there's probably tens or hundreds of ideas that are sitting in a Google Doc somewhere. And I find that a lot of people especially in marketing, are really good at coming up with the ideas and jotting them down. And it's a very exciting process, right? So when you come up with a new idea, your brain starts to just go into a different space, that creative space, and constantly, you know, expand off of this original idea where you come up with the idea, you throw it in your notebook, and you go, wow, this is it. This is going to be a solution to this problem that we're experiencing. And a couple days go by and that idea still sits there. And then a week goes by and maybe another idea is added to it. And then a month goes by. And then those two ideas that were sitting in there, they're still sitting in there. Nothing is happening with those ideas. So what that tells us is one really clear thing, is that we're afraid. There's some type of fear built around sharing your company's personality or sharing the amazing people's stories that work for your company. And you can tell if you're listening to this podcast right now and you find yourself in a similar situation where maybe you do have a few ideas in your notebook and they've been sitting there for a while. They're collecting digital dust. Maybe it's time to really kind of look inward and start to think, what am I so afraid of? What am I so afraid of? And I'll tie this back to Phil. When we first came up with this idea, or when I first came up with it and took it to the leadership team, I wasn't sure what their decision was going to be on it. And I think it was important to really understand that there was going to be some healthy skepticism associated with coming up with a new idea. But then there was a certain realization that I had where then all that fear just disappeared. And that was, there's a problem. Things are changing in the next 2 years, and there's a chance that visibility is going to be more challenging. And the solution of that is we need to create a spokes character so that people visually remember us, can tie that face and that personality to our brand in a scalable way, and in a way that works with our budget and effort and size of team and all of that stuff. With me being a one-person marketing team, that was very important. I couldn't create a solution that then all of a sudden needed multiple more people to support that. But realizing that here's a problem, here's the solution, and this is my creative solution to this problem was the most important realization. All that fear just disappeared, because that's what it's truly about at the end of the day. When you frame the way that you're trying to fix a problem with that creative solution, that's all you can do. So I think companies who are in that spot should really start to maybe consider changing their frame of mind around these things and realizing that, sure, maybe it won't go perfect, but what if it does?
That's such a great point. And you were successful at pitching this creative idea for Phil, and that doesn't mean for every single listener that doing exactly what you did is the thing that they need to do. It could be a lot smaller than that. It could potentially be even bigger ideas, right? Though generally I think starting smaller and kind of growing from there is generally the best approach. But anyway, whatever that idea is, tell us a little bit more about how you were able to pitch that and get leadership buy-in, so that, and also just generally any advice that you have for changing leadership's mind and getting them to kind of see past those fears or hesitancy that they have about taking a risk with their brand.
Yeah. So I don't know who said this, but most creative ideas don't really die in the marketplace, but they do die in conference rooms, and they often get kind of killed by the question, like we mentioned earlier, has anyone ever done this before? And when you're pitching these ideas, like when I pitch Phil, it's a cartoon character. Let's just say this again out loud, because at first it was kind of like, is this a good idea? It's a cartoon character for industrial filtration equipment. Now just let that sit in. That's not really something that a lot of people would necessarily go, oh yeah, that's perfect. Let's do it. I didn't walk in and say either. I think setting up setting up your thought process, especially as a creative, setting up your thought process to someone that may not be exposed to our marketing world on a day-to-day basis. Not setting it up and saying, let's make a cartoon, but setting it up by kind of talking about what we were mentioning earlier and saying, here's how we solve this problem of making this complex technology approachable by introducing Phil, a spokes character that's going to allow a certain entry point for consumers who may not be on the super technical level of our product, but it opens the door to an entry point in a creative way that allows people to understand what we do and who we are relatively quickly. It's the same idea of saying, let's make a cartoon, but it's a completely different conversation that I started with. So I would say, in my opinion, I would say stop pitching tactics on how you're going to do something and start pitching the problem that you're solving. So I've found that leadership doesn't need to love your idea right away. In fact, that if they all love your idea right away, have a little skepticism and go, okay, there's, maybe we need to get some other opinions, because it's completely normal for not everyone to be on board in the beginning. And that's simply because they may not see that vision yet that you've created, that you've had months thinking about or developing. And that's perfectly fine. Everyone needs their own time to kind of see and fully understand, the big picture and the vision. They need to see that you first understand the business problem, and that when leadership understands that, okay, this person gets it, that creative solution that you just proposed is a lot easier to approve when it's framed as more of a strategy and not as like some novelty, some creative marketing idea. So I think that's the best way to get the leadership team on board. And I will say, I have to say that the team here has been incredible, and we do have an excellent leadership team, and they've been very, very open and understanding, and always kept that conversation open when I've been able to come up with these ideas. So I think that's really important as well. But that would be probably my take on that. Start with framing it as this creative solution, as the strategy, and not necessarily just a random creative marketing idea that you come up with. So I don't know what your take is on that, Stephanie, or if you think that these bold ideas mostly fail because of the idea itself, or maybe because it's getting pitched wrong internally. I don't know what you've heard or what you found with that as well, but that's just my experience.
I think that you hit the nail on the head. There has to be a business justification for everything that you pitch to leadership. So what I'm hearing you describe is essentially that bridge between the creative marketing idea, the thing that's fun, the thing that's exciting, that's engaging and new,
Yep.
building the bridge between that and the business outcome or the business justification. And the way that you framed it as solving a problem, I think is one of the best ways to do that, because that is something that leadership will understand, right? They have a lot on their plate. They have a lot of different things that they're responsible for, or that, draw their attention. And, these sort of more fun marketing ideas may not be the thing that's going to move the needle for them, right? So you have to explain the why behind the what. And then you also need the how. So I think for a lot of very creative people, that can be one of the hardest things to learn in this profession, is how to build that framework and that infrastructure behind those creative ideas in order to make it something, obviously that leadership understands, but also something that makes sense for the business. Because you could come up with a million awesome, fun ideas, but if there is no business justification for it, then it's what you said. Essentially, it's like a novelty then. So
Right.
I think you really hit the nail on the head with that. And it's awesome that you've been able to successfully do this, to implement Phil, and I imagine see some great results from Phil. So, within reason, within things that are, okay to share publicly, like what are some of the results that you've seen after implementing Phil? Because you mentioned, it was this really interesting story behind launching him, but post-launch, what results have you seen?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we've done a lot of, neat things with him, and he's just getting started. This idea was pretty much rolled out around April of 2025. So it hasn't even been a full year yet. But some of the most exciting things that we've seen is just basic A/B testing on emails. So, the lift in the open rates, when people realize that it's coming not from just the marketing department, but it's coming from Phil. There's been such an interesting lift in the conversion rates, well above a 20% increase on those emails when A/B tested against coming from the company and then coming from Phil himself. I think it's been really interesting to see, because I think they know that my personal belief is, when customers see that a message or email is coming from either an actual person or from a spokes character that they know that they've just started a virtual relationship with, it just makes it more fun. I mean, just think about how and when you think about this, it actually makes so much sense. Think about you going away on vacation for 2 weeks, right? Or a week. And you come back, and everyone knows the first thing that you have to do when you get back from vacation is to clear that lovely email inbox. And, it's not a task that anyone really enjoys. So when you're going through it, what do? What does your mind do? You look for the 20% off and the buy one, get one emails from the brands that you love. And you start deleting all that, because most likely you probably missed that sale anyway. But what are the ones that you take a second look at? They're the ones that come from people. So what if a family member emailed you over the weekend? What if a friend that you haven't talked to in a few months sent you an email? Now, we don't know what's in the email yet. It could be an article, it could be them sending you a gift card, it could be anything. But when you start to pay attention to your own behaviors, we prioritize people. And we don't prioritize as much some of the corporate messaging or some of the companies, like the emails we get from companies. And with that being said, I think we all can look on ourselves and realize that we do the same thing. So if we do the same thing, how can it really be that much different than when you take that same approach and you apply that to the way a company does it? So we've seen a nice lift in email improvement, open rates by sending from Phil, and also too, I mean, just the amount of support we've gotten from different vendors, customers, and across the world that have reached out to us and said, "Wow, what you're doing there is really something special, and we would love to start to do something neat like that at our company too. Thank you for inspiring us. You've inspired us to do more and take a look at coming up with creative ways that you can reach your customers." So, and there's many more stories like that where that came from, but it's been really humbling and neat to see happen, especially in the real world, with this being just an idea less than a year ago to being, I would say 30% implemented. We have so many more cool things we're doing, but it's been exciting to see. And those are just some of the results that we've been able to experience along the way.
It's absolutely incredible. And I think another result that you've seen from this is a lot of outside interest in what you've done, right? You mentioned that people have reached out to you and said, "Wow, this is so awesome what you've done." And here you are on my podcast being interviewed because you have taken this perspective that you're sharing and operationalized it, right? You've actually acted on this. And you're also going to be speaking at the Industrial Marketing Summit in March, right? In
Yeah.
Austin, Texas, about this exact thing. So what that tells me is there's a very clear need for real examples of these ideas being put into action. And you're a person who has done that. And that's why people want to talk to you and they want to hear from you, because I think, not to speak for everyone in all of marketing, but I do feel pretty confident saying that a lot of people have this sense of, I want to be more creative. I want to try new things. I want the brand I'm working for or working on to stand out more and not be forgettable. I want to connect with the people who could be my buyers. It's just, I think you've done such a great job of practicing what you preach. And I have to ask you, because
Sure.
this has been in the back of my mind throughout this conversation, but are you familiar with the Man in the Arena? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. Yeah, fill me in a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so it's a Brene Brown talk, but it's actually
Okay.
originally a speech from Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay. Yep.
But the Man in the Arena is great in terms of, Brene Brown talks a lot about vulnerability, right? And Man in the Arena sort of supports that idea of being vulnerable and how important it is. But from a professional perspective, I think it does apply here as well, because essentially what it says is that the people like yourself, right, who are willing to actively engage in things that are more challenging tasks. You're willing to put yourself out there, to risk failure, to try something new. That that it's just so much better than being the person, sitting in the audience criticizing it or pointing out flaws, or, oh well, that might not work, or that might not work, or this could happen, or that could happen, right?
Mhm.
Obviously all risk within reason, but
Yeah.
it's just saying that it's better to take action. It's better to be resilient and to push forward and create momentum than to
Mhm.
just try to play it safe and be
Yes.
inactive. And so I think that I've been thinking about Man in the Arena throughout this conversation, because really, to me, supports that idea just from a professional
Yeah.
perspective. I'm curious what you think about that, but I think it really fits in here that you have to. You'll be better off taking that step and trying something new than trying nothing at
Yes.
all.
And you know what? And it reminds me of another kind of writing like that. It's like it's not the critic that counts. So, right, when you're doing bold things, some people like it, some people won't like it, and that's okay. There's things that you like, and there's things that you don't like. So that's going to happen with every situation to every person, right? And yeah, and even if it, without at a high level, I should just say, it's just so much more fun when you can try new things. When I speak to people about this, and plenty of people have reached out, especially on LinkedIn and email even, and they've asked, "How are you doing this?" And I don't have the time. I don't have the time to do these types of things in my company. And I give a one sentence answer reply back, and it's make the time. If it's important to you, make the time. There's been plenty of nights where I've got into the office at 6 in the morning, and I didn't leave till 8 p.m. or pretty close to 8. So, and it's because when you have a passion for something of real change and real creativity, and you can see the vision, it doesn't matter whether or not people fully see it yet, because you just have to give them a little bit of time and be patient. I think that's one of the best skills you can have, as well as be patient, because not everyone is going to adopt or adapt your vision at the same speed as you are, and that is perfectly fine. But what's been really neat is experiencing that. And to your point, when you can implement these really cool ideas, and you have a team that is supportive, and you have customers that are enjoying the experience of this spokes character that I created months later, there's something really special about that. At the end of the day, it's pretty simple. People do business with companies that they like, and what are companies made of? They're made of people. So people end up doing business with people that they like. And if you can include a special experience like this along the way, why wouldn't you? You know, it's when you look back and you were a young kid, everything in the world was just so exciting and new and playful and fun. And as we get older, something changes in most of us, and we start to take things a little bit more serious. So what's nice about this is when you create something special, you kind of bring that piece out of everyone, whether that's someone from the outside looking in, taking a look at how they can adopt that at something similar at their company, or it's an employee, who's having fun posing next to our foam cutout of Phil and sending to their friends and family. It's just special. And if you're going to show up to work each day, why not do something fun? There's no real reason not to.
Yep, absolutely. Perfectly said. No more millennial sad beige marketing. No more. No more. We need to do something more fun. We need to do
Yes.
something engaging. We need more color and,
Yeah.
and fun in our lives. Like, I couldn't agree more. I mean, personally and professionally, you're so right that there is just that so you have to proactively maintain that sense of curiosity and,
Right.
and fun and excitement in the world. And that's something that is so powerful when you can bring that to your job in marketing and
Right.
communication. So I love the way that you put that. And I think that everything you've shared today has been so great, such useful insights, such interesting perspective. And, I do think we need to wrap it up here, but I would love to continue this conversation later in another episode, just because there's still so much more that I think we could unpack together. But, Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And for anybody who's listening to this episode who wants to get connected with you, where can friends of Good Marketing with Stephanie find you on social?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, Josh Rosman, and send me a message. When you see this, watch the podcast, send me a message and let me know if there's a creative idea that maybe you need some help sorting through. Because at the end of the day, we can decide when we're ready to be bold, right? You shouldn't be really waiting for permission from an industry to say, okay, manufacturing industry, it's now okay. It's now time to be creative, because you're never going to get that. No industry is going to be coming forward and saying, okay, we do spokes characters now in the industry. So if you know that that's never going to happen or never going to come, why don't you create that opportunity for yourself? So I want to leave people with that one question. What can you do that other people have not seen yet or have considered doing in your industry? And how can you be the catalyst that takes this bold idea and brings it to your company and really makes something special of it? Because not only is it fun to do, but it's really, really rewarding when you get to see other people benefit from your ideas as well. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd love to help if I can help in any way.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, you heard the man. Reach out on LinkedIn, and lots to think about here as well. Lots of great questions to ask. And, for anybody who's listening or watching who is planning to attend the Industrial Marketing Summit in Austin, Josh will be speaking. Do you know which day you're speaking yet?
Yeah, I believe it's the 4th.
Okay, awesome. Yep. So March 4th. So definitely make sure you stop by Josh's talk at IMS if you're going to be there. But if not, definitely connect with him on social media. And, just thank you again, Josh, for joining us today. And for all of our listeners, until next time, if you learned something new today or you heard an idea that lit a spark for you, I'm sure you did, because I know for me, it certainly did. It was such a great conversation. Please subscribe, rate, and share the Good Marketing with Stephanie podcast with your friends, with your peers at work, your people in your network, whoever you think would benefit from hearing this. And thank you for listening. Until next time, this has been Good Marketing with Stephanie. And thank you for joining us, Josh.
Thanks.